Hello everyone, it's Nina and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we are going to be going over my 2026 yearly TBR, as well as talking about my reading goals for the new year. Unironically, this is one of my favorite videos to film because I feel like I put a lot of time and effort into my yearly TBR. It's just a really good, solid list that whenever I'm unsure about what book to pick up next, I can always go back to any time in the year to try and make more progress on completing all the books I put on there. I think I said this in my 25 books to read in 2025 video that happened exactly a year ago, but we are not doing 26 books in 2026. I don't know why, but that just feels like too high of a number, especially with this last year. I read only around 46 books in total, so I don't really want to decide on half my books for the year at the very beginning. So I decided instead I'm going to make two different lists. I'm going to show a couple books now that are going to be my priority for the first half of the year, and then around June or July I might do a part 2 of other books that I want to check out, because I do feel like my interests somewhat shift throughout the year in terms of what I want to prioritize. So all of the books I choose at the beginning of the year might not be my top books I want to read by the end of the year. This is supposed to be all for fun, and I'm not going to push myself to read books that I don't really want to actually read. Anyway, I have 12 books that I'm going to be putting on my list for the first half of the year. So I think we'll go through the books that I have on this list, and then we'll move into kind of my general reading goals for 2026. So with that intro out of the way, let's get right on into the video. You'll see a big theme with the books on this list is that I am trying to prioritize reading a lot of books off my physical TBR. And also very typical fashion for me, there's 5 queer historical romances. So let's go ahead and talk about those books first. The first set of books I have here is actually a trilogy, and that is the Roaring Twenties Magic series by Ellie Theron. This is a spin-off series to the Magic in Manhattan series, of which I read the second and third book in 2025, and you have no idea how excited I am to jump into this series. I absolutely loved the Magic in Manhattan series. I loved the main couple in it, but then when it comes to this series, it's actually a romance between two of the side characters that are from the original trilogy. One of them being Wesley, who was huge standout character and one that I really loved from the original trilogy. I just love him so much. He's such my type of character. This messy, bitchy man with a dark past. And I'm pretty sure the main ship in this is a grumpy sunshine dynamic between him and Sebastian, where Wesley is the grumpy and Sebastian is the sunshine. And honestly, I eat that shit up. I'm so excited to learn about their story. So yes, I do have the mass market paperbacks of this entire series. For some reason, the first one, Proper Scoundrels, I'm pretty sure is already out of print, which is kind of insane because I'm pretty sure this book is only 4 or 5 years old. So I had to get it secondhand off eBay. But then I also have Once a Rogue and Viscounts and Villainy. This book just came out in 2025. So I'm really excited. I probably will do maybe even a full spoiler-filled reading vlog when I check out all of the series. I'm really excited. I think I'm gonna have a great time with these. Okay, the next book I have on my list is A Liaison with Her Leading Lady by Lottie R. James. This is kind of a book that's more representative of a larger group that is lesbian historical romances. I honestly have only read, I think, 2 from this very niche subgenre, but I'd like to add more to the list. And this is one I was actually able to find secondhand. This is set in 1832, and it's a romance between a playwright and the owner of a theater. I also love the really campy cover on this one. This is a book that's on my physical TBR, but it's also one that I can get the audiobook through Hoopla. So for those reasons, it's definitely a book that's high on my priority list. Okay, the last queer historical romance I have here is also being added because it's part of my physical TBR, and that is You Should Be So Lucky by Cat Sebastian. This is a gay historical romance that's set in the 1960s that is a romance between a baseball player and a reporter. Honestly, I'm just trying to work through the majority of Cat Sebastian's backlist. I already know I really like her writing style. There's quite a few of her books that are top favorites of mine, and I have a kind of tentative plan that I want to do a ranking Cat Sebastian books video, in which case I'd like to maybe cover more of her traditionally published books, of which this is one of them. And I've also heard good things about this book as well as the prequel book, so I'll probably check both of those out sometime this year. Okay, now that we've moved out of queer historical romance, I'm going to move into some of the queer YA books I have. The first one of those is a book that has been on my physical TBR for so long. It's also the third book in a series that I didn't know if I was going to fully DNF the series, but I kind of want to make more of a commitment to reading this book now so I can decide if this series is for me. And that is A Grim and Sunken Vow by Ashley Shuttleworth. This is the third book in the Hollow Star Saga, which is a fae-based YA fantasy romance series. This is the third book out of 4. I believe the fourth one came out in 2025, and I've had this book on my shelves at least for 2 years now. and actually I think was part of a previous yearly TBR that I just didn't get to. I think one of the things that's really daunting is that this book is so thick, and for a while I just like wasn't super motivated. There were a lot of other books that were higher on my priority to check out ahead of this one, but I actually recently found out that Hoopla does have the audiobook for this, which I think will make it a little bit less intense of a reading experience, having the option to switch between reading it physically and then listening to the audiobook. And I'm also like just trying to decide if I want to keep this series in the long run, since I do own the hardcovers of the first, second, and now the third book, and I'm trying to decide if I want to buy the hardcover for the last one. I figure depending on my experience in reading this, that will kind of make or break my decision if I'm going to keep this series, if I want to go ahead and finish the series, or if I should DNF it. So this is a book I'm adding for my yearly TBR. Okay, next book I have here is Crier's War by Nina Valera. This I want to say is one of the more popular, or like at least beloved, YA fantasy romance series out there, but it took me until relatively recently to find out what it was about. This is a like slightly dystopian story where there was an automaton rebellion that overthrew human rule, and it's kind of like a star-crossed forbidden love between a human rebel and an automaton princess whose name is Crier, hence the name Crier's War. First of all, I love the name Crier. I think it's such a good, interesting fantasy name. And also, obviously, I'm interested because lesbians, but also where one is a monster and a princess. Truly kind of a serve. This was a book I kind of picked up on a whim from a thrift store, knowing just the basic premise that it was a lesbian fantasy romance. So I'm interested in checking this one out. It's another one that obviously I have on my physical TBR now, and I'm pretty sure I can get an audiobook for it. Okay, now let's move on to the last YA book I have in this list, and that is Gods and Monsters by Shelby Mahurin. I feel like if you've watched other videos on my channel, you're probably tired of seeing me put this on TBRs, because I'm pretty sure I put it on like 3 at this point. Kind of similarly to A Grim and Sunken Vow, this book is a little intimidating just because of how thick it is. It's I think a little over 600 pages, but I do really want to read this. I want to finish the trilogy. I already know I really like the main couple and just like all of the other side characters. Anyway, if you have not watched my other TBR videos, this is a YA fantasy romance that is like a forbidden love between a witch and a witch hunter. And yeah, this is the third book in the series. There's just been a lot of drama and a lot of, I guess, like big shakeups at the end of the previous book that make me kind of hesitant, because I think a like kind of side villain is going to be featured a lot more in this, and I really don't like it in the audiobook narration when they do her voice. So that's kind of also been something that has hindered me in reading this. Even though I think the audiobook narrators are really talented, whenever the guy does this one character's voice, it is like legitimately creepy and just like kind of unpleasant to listen to. Like he's doing a good job acting it, but it makes me want to not listen to the audiobook. So for those reasons, I feel like I can't really dual read and listen to this book. I have to kind of just commit to reading it physically. So yeah, that's kind of been one of the main reasons why I haven't gone ahead and started reading this, but I'm going to make the commitment to try and read it in 2026. Okay, I think I'm going to finish off the 2 other physical TBR books I have that I would like to read, and then we'll move into the books I don't own yet, but I'm probably going to buy at some point in 2026. The first one is very outside of my comfort zone just because it's a graphic novel, and that is Fun Home by Alison Bechdel. I've owned this book for a very long time. Actually, if I can flex really quickly, the copy that I have is actually signed and personalized to me. If you don't know who Alison Bechdel is, she is a very famous comics artist. She's also the person who the Bechdel test is named after, and this is like one of her like memoir comics. It bounces between her like childhood when their family ran a funeral home, as well as her relationship with her father, and kind of learning after her father's death that he was actually a closeted gay man. I'm putting this on this list obviously because I really want to read it. I also think I'm probably going to try and see the musical adaptation of this sometime in 2026, so I feel like I should do the kind of like recommended reading and go ahead and read the original book first. Also, Alison Bechdel is like the lesbian, so it's also kind of a shame that I haven't read her work before now. So yes, this one is getting added to my yearly TBR. Okay, the last of the books that's in my physical TBR is a little bit outside my comfort zone, and that is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I don't really read a lot of general like women's fiction / historical fiction, but Taylor Jenkins Reid is kind of one of the only authors I will pick up in that genre. But this is one of her like kind of fake famous people novels. There's kind of like 2 camps, the people that really like Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones, and then the people that really like Malibu Rising and Carrie Soto. And I'm definitely more on the Carrie Soto side. I wasn't the biggest fan of Daisy Jones and the Six. So hopefully with that kind of track record, I will enjoy this one. And again, it's a book on my physical TBR, definitely one I can get the audiobook for from my library. So I'm hoping I can pick this one up and hopefully I will like it at least half as much as I did with Carrie Soto is Back. Okay, like I said, the last 2 books I have in this yearly TBR are ones I don't own yet, but I definitely will be buying them at some point this year. If you didn't think I had enough Allie Theron added to my TBR, I'm also really hoping to read Twisted Shadows this year. This is the second book in her Sugar and Vice trilogy, the first book being Liar City, which is a book I read in 2025 and really liked it. This is a modern day thriller, contemporary romance, urban fantasy. A lot of genres kind of getting mixed together there. It's set in modern day Seattle, where there's certain people that have developed this ability of empathy where if they touch another person, they are able to like fully read their emotions. Empaths have kind of been like treated like second-class citizens, and there's almost a like kind of right-wing witch hunt against them. And the main romance is between an empath as well as this other guy who isn't really like an empath hunter. He more so is someone that works for a government organization that takes care of rogue empaths. But it's gonna have a lot of like thriller, like mystery, crime elements in it. I really like the first book, and I really want to read the second and hopefully also the third book in 2026. I believe the third and final book in the trilogy is coming out in July, so hopefully by reading the second one in the first half of the year, I'll be ready and primed to read the third book once it comes out. Because I'm pretty sure the second book also ends on like a pretty big cliffhanger, so I didn't want to read the first 2 back to back and then have to wait a full year for the third one. So by reading the second one probably closer to July, then I'll be ready to dive right into the third one. Okay, and the last book I have on my yearly TBR is the 4th volume of Heaven Official's Blessing by Mengxiang Tongshu. If you guys have watched any of my recent reading vlogs, you've seen that I actually have started this series. I was in the middle of the 3rd volume, and I still am in the middle of the 3rd volume when I finished that vlog, but I'm hoping to read plenty more volumes of that series in 2026 and hopefully finish it. So I thought to like get the ball rolling, I would put the 4th volume on my yearly TBR. This is definitely going to be one of the ones I probably get to earliest, because as soon as I finish the 3rd volume, I think I'll probably roll right into reading the 4th volume of the series. So this is probably a book I'll be starting sometime in January or February. Okay, now that we're done with all the books on my yearly TBR, I thought we could talk about some of my like general reading goals for 2026. One of my biggest goals is to try and tackle my physical TBR, specifically reading more of the books I owned before 2026. I would really like to get through at least 20 books from my owned shelf. And I've also made a little tracker in my reading journal for 2026 that's hopefully going to help me tackle as many books from my physical TBR. In conjunction with that, I also want to finish as many series as I can. I really want to work on some of the more like lingering series that I haven't touched in the last 1 or 2 years, and either finish them or DNF them and get rid of the books that I own in that series, which might be a little harsh, but I don't really think I'm going to care enough to own them if I don't really want to see the ending of the series, if that makes any sense. I don't know, we'll have to see on that once I get to making more progress in the series that I'm reading. Another goal that's new for this year is I really want to reread more books. I'm hoping I can reread at least 2 books this year. I do have 2 in mind, which is why I said 2 as my goal. One of the books I really want to read is Kit Webb by Cat Sebastian. I read this before I really got into Cat Sebastian, and it's been a little while. I honestly don't think I really loved it, despite giving it 4 stars. So I kind of want to read it again and see if it holds up, and compare it to some of her other books, since obviously I've read a lot more from her now. And also in rereading it, I'll kind of be refreshing my mind to the story and see how it ranks amongst her other books when I make that ranking video. Also, if you guys have watched any of my videos in regarding my book budget for 2025, I'm going to definitely keep my budget goal of 240 books for the entire year. I did go over that in 2025, but I do kind of see it almost as like a stepping stone to this like current financial goal, where I definitely spent a lot less in 2025 than I did in 2024. And I feel like now in 2026, I'll be able to keep the $240 as my goal and not go over it. I think the big thing is I only like reading and buying queer books. That is really what I want to spend money on. And I finally found a good queer bookstore that I can go to often. So I feel like I should not bother buying many other books unless it's a Barnes exclusive or something, or maybe a limited edition of a book that I already know I really love. I'm just gonna really try to narrow it down and not buy as many random books unless there's something I've already wanted and was planning on buying at some point. Pretty much everything else I can try and find from my library or listen to as an audiobook. So yeah, those are all of my goals for 2026. I'm feeling pretty confident, honestly, in everything that I set out for myself. I guess I should also mention in terms of a general yearly goal, I don't usually set them. In general, I like to read around 50 books, since ideally, if you're reading about 1 book a week, that would be 52 books. So I think as long as I read around the same amount of books as I did the previous year, I'll definitely be happy. Anyway, that is it for this video. Thank you guys, as always, so much for watching. If you are interested in any of these books I talked about, consider subscribing to my channel because I'm sure a few of them are going to be featured in reading vlogs I do in the next couple months. So you might as well go ahead and subscribe so you'll be ready when those come out. But overall, thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed this video, consider liking, commenting, or subscribing if you aren't already. Consider following me also on the story graph if you'd like to see my reading updates in real time as I make more progress in my 2026 TBR. And I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!